I've titled this week's episode The Virtual Power of a Polish Energy Entrepreneur interview with Bartok Kwiatowski. And this is going to be episode 45. I want to welcome you to the My Energy 2050 podcast, where we speak to the people building a clean energy system by 2050. I'm your host, Michael LaBelle. And this week we got on a longtime friend of mine from Poland, Bartok Kwiatowski. And I'm really apologizing for the name, the pronunciation. He's the director of the Polish Liquid Gas Association, and I've known Bartok for over a decade, and he's always a well of knowledge on the Polish energy scene, and of course on what is happening in Europe, and really the impact that has on developing countries or newer member states like Poland. And what we're going to get into today in this episode is really we have a broad discussion about Poland and nuclear power and hydrogen. It's really kind of forward-looking, but based on Bartok's experience in Poland. And he's got a range of positions and a range of companies. You'll hear about all this. And because of that, he's really grounded in what is happening in Poland and how companies are able to make money, or as he knows from his own experience, how they're not able to make money. And this is really important because when we think about the energy transition and all the effort, the new technologies, the new businesses that actually need to be created, and not just relying on older established companies to make this transition happen, these challenges that Bartok relays to us are super important to cover. And more broadly, though, we get into the history of nuclear power and both why that didn't occur in Poland in the past and why it may actually happen in the future. I don't know. I think we should have left it on a bet by the end of our discussion. He's definitely optimistic, and I think I'm less so. We do go into great detail about hydrogen in Poland and how it could be something, and something could happen both with electrical vehicles, creation of battery manufacturing hubs in Poland, and what does the future hold as coal is phased out in the country. Bartok, he's been really active in the startup scene, and we go into detail about the virtual power plant company that he helped establish. And he does recount the difficulties of this small energy company because it actually saves energy for the consumer, for their partners that they connect with. But at the same time, because they're saving so much money, and it actually turns out to be a low-cost business, it doesn't cost that much to make this company run. It doesn't attract the money from VCs or from others just because it's actually quite simple to do. So it really gets to the heart of how we have a smart energy system, or we're trying to develop one, but then the financial incentives for greater investment into certain types of companies, even though they make a big difference, may actually not be there for private or even for state funds. I want to go into detail later on, as you'll see, is that we're going to cover these broad themes of the energy transition. I would say mainly within Poland, but all these can be applied, I think, to other developing countries. And hopefully this is really useful for you. So first, I just want to thank Bartok for coming on the episode this week. And I want to thank you all for listening. We're definitely going higher and higher with our subscribers, and that's a really good feeling that we're getting this message out about what people are doing to make a difference and to help implement the energy transition. And I'll just read my final bit here. The intent of the My Energy 2050 podcast is to spread the knowledge about how the energy system can assist our transition towards a greener future. So keep that in mind. And now for this week's episode. I'm here today with Bartosz Kwiatowski.
It's fine. It's Kwiatkowski. Yes.
Kwiatkowski, Poland in Warsaw. And I'm at the Polish Liquid Gas Association. More than that, Bartosz is involved in a virtual power plant startup, we'll call it, or it's a maturing company, and a range of other activities. And I have a whole list of questions here for him. And I have to say, we've known each other for quite some time.
Oh, it is always a pleasure, Mike. Yes.
Yes. Going back to the shale gas era, or even before then, I think. So
Yeah. Long track record of, I would say, uncompleted projects in Poland, like shale gas and nuclear power, that sort of
Yes.
things. Yeah,
In fact, I think one of the first discussions we had was about nuclear power.
yeah, I
So,
guess so.
yeah, or
Yeah,
it involved it. Yeah, we're still waiting for that Polish nuclear power
I'm
plant.
looking forward to. Actually, I would love to see the nuclear power plant to be built in Poland, but I guess it's a long shot.
Yeah, but actually, then that brings to mind we did meet about that because you were working for a consultancy that was working on nuclear power.
Yes, indeed.
Maybe we were going to go into the post-COVID period in virtual power plants, but let's just back up and start over and actually talk about your role in getting involved in the energy sector and maybe just starting at this period of time with a consultancy
Yes,
activities.
yes, 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 indeed. Well, I'm involved in the energy sector since 2008, maybe, and among my first energy-related projects was nuclear power plant project in Poland, and as you mentioned, shale gas project. At the very beginning, when I was working for a public affairs consultancy, I was also involved in second generation biofuels, and then I would say predominant form of renewable energy sources in Poland. So wind farms, onshore wind farms. So so that was very beginning of my long affair with the energy policy and energy project. Indeed.
Maybe we take the long arc of things. First, what happened to Polish nuclear power? I mean, there was a long history and attempts to build it going back, way back, what, 80s, even late 70s. It was about the same time as Hungary was considering it. And then it's even, I think, on the plans for 2050 or even sooner. Are there any movements in Poland on nuclear power?
Very much so,
Uh-huh.
actually. Nuclear power plants are part of the new Polish energy policy 2040. And there is actually a government strategy document providing for a completion of the first large scale traditional third generation nuclear power plant by 2033. So that's sort of a strategy document. We are talking about the baseload power generation, but at the same time, during 2021, a new form of nuclear power plants took flight in Poland. So there is a lot of interest in small modular reactors. As we know, there are some design being currently evaluated by the National Nuclear Regulatory Commission in the United States, and some of these designs are currently apparently considered, particularly by the private operators in Poland. It is very much tied to a Polish plan to phase out coal. So in some cases, the power generation companies are interested to replace um, existing power source from fossil fuels with the nuclear power plants.
Mm-hmm. So, so actually, I shouldn't joke about nuclear power in Poland because basically it's been discussed for so many decades, but now you actually feel like something is moving, and we can be serious about discussing it.
Well, I would say something is moving again. So let's hope that this time will be more successful than the previous time. Of course, it's a very political project. It's very sensitive from the standpoint of public opinion. But I believe that uh, to achieve the emission reduction target from the Polish standpoint, nuclear power is very much uh, among the priority projects.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay, that's good to hear because I think now, I mean, I don't know, just this week I was reflecting on it with the shortages in China, the power shortages there, and it really kind of underscores the difficulty in transitioning away from coal. One of the reasons the shortages in China is because they're trying to phase out the coal, along with not importing coal from Australia. But nonetheless, it shows the difficulty of moving away from coal. And I think Poland, I don't want to say it's a similar situation, but maybe it is because it's so highly dependent on coal. What, about 80%? I
It's
think
70 something, yes, at the moment.
so. Moving all that out of the system and then replacing it, nuclear power would actually be a great baseload generation to have.
The more so, I believe that of these 70 plus or 75% of coal, more than 30% is lignite. So it is very difficult to transport lignite actually, and existing resources are being depleted at the moment. So definitely by 2035, we will not have any longer lignite plants, just because the existing fields are being depleted.
Clock is literally ticking to build nuclear power then in Poland.
Yes, definitely.
I mean, some would say, well, we can't have nuclear power, but then an alternative needs to come out then.
Yes, very much so. That's why, for example, Poland was among a group of these countries, alongside of France, for example, or Belgium, to push forward the nuclear power as a part of the taxonomy, European taxonomy. Yeah.
That's why the language of the EU partly stays neutral on the role of nuclear power.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Okay. So I that's always good to check in, and this power plant would probably go up. They would build it around Gdansk. I know there's two sites that were always considered as locations for nuclear power.
As far as I know, the location is still not selected.
Okay.
It is going to be selected over the next few years. But there are definitely some preferred sites. One is Choczewo on the Baltic Sea coast.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is sort of a legacy site in Żarnowiec. It is still the same site where this 1980s old nuclear power plant was supposed to be built.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with this site is it is not directly on the seacoast. So the modern third generation reactor would not have enough cooling to operate in this location.
It's next to a river, I'm guessing.
It's next to the lake.
Oh, okay.
But it is too small to support a third generation reactor, because it was supposed to support the old VVR 440 reactor, so 440 megawatts.
Yes.
Like 1/3 of the current plant.
Which is, I think, the same kind that's in Paksh nuclear power plant.
Yes, indeed, it's the same design that in Paksh.
Yes, and just a fun fact is the control room, or the systems for the control room that were meant to be built here in Poland, were actually bought by the Hungarians and are used for training in Hungary.
Yes, I heard that story actually, and actually this Czarnowiec project was pretty much advanced, and part of the equipment were sold to Finland actually. So part to Hungary, part to Finland. So pretty
It was so, and
story.
that shows how advanced. Yeah. Right. The things had been manufactured for the power plant here.
Yes.
And actually, maybe we go way back. But why was it stopped?
There were two major reasons. One reason was the Chernobyl, and the resulting distrust towards the nuclear power. And then there was a fall of communism in 1989. So actually, in early 90s, the Polish state was in such a dire financial situation that the nuclear power project was as unsustainable, both from the standpoint of from the financial standpoint, and from the standpoint of distrust towards the nuclear power in general, and probably also towards the Russian technology in particular.
Yes, the first part, the distrust towards the Russian Soviet technology, is what I heard in the past about why it was kind of dragged out for a long time. and then the collapse of communism and Chernobyl, everything combined, yeah, provides a good background for why it didn't take off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hungary got lucky because they built it in the 80s, so it was
Yes,
all paid for actually in exchange and barter, and whatever money that they needed to pay, they paid. And now, I mean, they've been operating the power plant since, and basically didn't have to pay any money to operate this.
agree. And I can quote one of my friends, an American engineer, who said that there is no cheaper energy source than a depreciated nuclear power plant.
Yes, one that was depreciated under the Soviet system. Yes. Okay, with that joke, then let's turn to maybe your perspective on the cleaner energy system. And this is a really general one, but as we'll get to, you're involved in this virtual power plant company, along with representing the Polish Liquid Gas Association, and involved as a country representative for Sotel Systems, which is, as I understand, an energy management system for solar voltaic systems. And in my interpretation of your roles, and knowing you and your strong knowledge in this area, you kind of operate in these in between spaces, or these niche within the power system. And I was just my question to you to start off, and maybe this is too big of a question, is how do you see the development and the change in the energy system? I mean, we just talked about the tremendous struggle Poland has shifting away from coal-fired power plants, but how how can this transition happen in a matter of a few years when, I mean, because you have an insight how technical things can get. Can this happen, or we actually need much longer beyond 2035, for example, for a effective transition?
Well, that depends if you want a frank answer or 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 a political one. Well, I would say that there are many aspects to this process. It's one of the I would say it's a sort of a comparable to the industrial revolution, actually, to this energy transition. So let me quote Lawrence Schmidt from ENSO-E. 2 or 3 years ago, when I met him, when he was still at ENSO-E, he said that we need to be prepared to have an energy system based totally 100% on renewable energy sources by 2050. And it's a very ambitious goal. It's perceived as a bold one by the power system people. And you know what is a bold challenge? It is something between very difficult and patently mad.
Okay.
So that's the bold challenge. But we really don't have much choice, as you said, because we need to phase out lignite. We need to walk away from stone coal or black coal.
Yeah.
The process only depends on how much control we want to have over this process. So what we are certainly seeing is that the renewable energy sources are developing from bottom up. So when you look at these large or sometimes white elephant projects that are supported from the top level,
Mm-hmm.
they are sometimes stalling because there is a lot of regulatory obstacles. But if you look to these small, minute projects, sometimes they are developing like hell. For example, if you look at the PV market in Poland, well, the capacity of photovoltaics in Poland are like doubling or tripling every year. So these are projects operating below the regulatory radar screen, I'd say, and these are actually developing very quickly. These are operating in that way that they are starting to interfere with the grid stability, because when I'm talking to the distribution system operators people, they say, well, actually the connection of the growing number of PVs is playing with the voltage within the distribution system. So the result is, if you can see LED lighting, for example, they are very sensitive towards voltage and the influx of these renewable energy sources, which is PVs are, for example, very stochastic source of power. They are leading to a shorter lifetime of LEDs in the system.
Oh,
Because
really?
the
Because the
voltage is voltage is very volatile at the moment. So this is one of the challenges, and this is one of the challenges resulting in the distribution system operators are becoming very cautious regarding the connection of new installations, and there is a pressure both from the industry and from the regulatory standpoint to combine PV generation with energy storage, just to reduce the impact on the grid.
And in Poland, they're doing more and more on energy storage. I mean, as I understand, there's 2 battery factories being established in the country.
From the standpoint of production of chemical batteries, that's true. Yes, yes.
And then is there a regulatory regime that's meant to encourage the deployment of batteries for the grid stability?
Not at the moment. It is. We are in the process of changing of the renewable energy sources law, and it is going to provide the regulatory regime for energy storage. So there is already a provision for energy clusters in Poland that will require them to have like a. I may be wrong regarding the exact figures, but I think it's about 2% of the energy cluster's generation capacity needs to be covered by the energy storage.
Okay.
So and it's going to grow only.
So 2% of the photovoltaic production has to be covered by energy storage.
Well, concerning all the energy capacity installed within energy clusters,
yes,
2% need to be covered by energy storage.
Okay.
Regardless of the source of energy.
Oh, okay.
But but it's going to be tighter. Right now, there is a new bill on renewable energy sources, and there will be actually more government support for installation of battery storage.
Okay, but then that's a huge incentive to build more storage. Then, I mean, if it's a requirement of 2%, then these energy clusters actually have to install more.
Yeah, they will have to install more. Yes, yes.
And then that's going to prompt. Yeah, I mean that's going to make the grid much more stable in these cases then.
And it's definitely a direction that the energy system will evolve in the forthcoming years. Definitely.
Wow, that's really bold. And then within this area, maybe we can shift to the virtual power plant. Is there so maybe first you can explain what a virtual power plant is, and then we can get into operating a virtual power plant in Poland or in other countries as well. So what is a virtual power plant?
Well, basically, I would say that the virtual power plant is the system. It's a software system combining various energy assets, particularly generation assets, but also the offtake or demand to manage it properly according to market signals and according to the system requirements and system technical restrictions. So as you mentioned at the very beginning, I'm still involved in an energy startup developing the virtual power, one of the virtual power plants. And in case of these specific projects, we were particularly focused on the demand side of the market.
Mm-hmm.
So on management of the energy consumption of commercial buildings, which is a sort of aspect overlooked by virtual power plants in general, because because it's quite difficult actually to manage the demand while avoiding adverse impact on users of buildings.
Okay. Yes. Yes. And how do you manage the demand side then?
In our case, we developed sort of an AI enhanced management system that was integrating with so-called BMS, that is building management system,
Mm-hmm.
that every modern commercial building has installed. And this specific system, on the basis of data from sensors we installed in the building and the data from the legacy BMS sensors, adjusted in real time operations or settings of operations of automation in these commercial buildings according to the real demand. For example, according to CO2 content in the air inside, humidity within the building, or perceived temperature.
Mm-hmm. And you had sensors monitoring all this.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
We were installing sensors only in like a critical areas of the building. We were also reading data from BMS, and in real time, our algorithm was changing the settings, for example, for HVAC, so ventilation and heating and air conditioning within the building, to adjust it to precisely to the need of the people are using the building at the very moment.
Okay. And did you get feedback from the people?
Well, the general feedback was that the quality of air and the comfort parameters improved.
Oh, really?
If you
Okay.
look at the perceived effect from the tenants particularly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But that's really important because I would think that if you install these sensors and you're trying to save energy, right? So you're trying to do less, that maybe the airflow would be less or the heat wouldn't be as high, but you're actually saying that people felt better in these buildings.
Well, actually,
Uh-huh.
that's the beauty of the algorithm. You can configure it according, for example, to the contracts signed between the tenant and the building owner. So, for example, if the expected parameters, temperature parameters are between, I don't know, 20 and 24 degrees Celsius, we can configure the system to be exactly that. And right now, it may vary much more. So depending on the settings and insulation,
Because they may not monitor it actually.
they are not monitoring it in
Uh-huh.
real time. It is like
Uh-huh.
set up for example, at the beginning of summer, and it continues until the end of summer,
Regardless of the weather outside.
regarding of the weather outside. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So the algorithm was actually checking the weather conditions and adjusting the operation settings accordingly.
Uh-huh. And then the other side of it, then, I mean, the purpose of you managing their energy system is to save the energy in the building itself. And then you're able to, so that's one side of it. And then you're able to sell that power or that contracted saved power elsewhere, like to the grid.
That's of course subject to regulatory regime,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely what we did and we were capable to do was to shift to shift the load of the building. So we can change time zones when the energy is consumed to avoid peaks of demand within the electricity system. So we actually proved that on one of our clients that we can shift the consumption of energy from more expensive peak hours to less expensive off-peak hours, reducing also at the same time the strain on the grid.
Mm-hmm.
So
How did you do that?
well, basically the algorithm was using the thermal inertia of the building to consume more energy before the peak hours, to prepare the building, and the building actually can retain these thermal conditions for a long time. So you don't need actually to, for example, to operate air conditioning 100% during the peak hours, because you can cool the building earlier, like at 7 or 8 a.m. to prepare it for peak hours.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because it retains the
Yes.
cool air.
Yeah.
So yeah, you don't have to do it as the thermometer hits 80, or let's just do it in Celsius. I don't know, 30 degrees Celsius. Then that's when the air conditioning would kick in. But you can actually you have your weather profile.
Yes.
And you can kick it in a couple hours earlier. Even.
Yes, indeed. So that was basically that was how the system was working.
And why is this still a startup company? This should be in every building. There should it should be a multi-billion-dollar company now.
Well, there are many aspects to that. One is that it is that our solution was very inexpensive, actually. So
I'm sorry.
Yes, me too. But but the real thing is that it is much easier to finance a more expensive project, to set up financing for an expensive project than for a smaller project.
I've heard this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's actually much easier to line up financing for I don't know, a cogeneration plant at the new building, done for a relatively small sensor system, reducing the energy consumption.
So I mean, I'm sure for example, VCs or Energy from the EU, you went to these and you cooperated with these kind of typical organizations.
Yes. So just an example. You go to a VC and say, we want to deploy our system or 20 buildings this year. And they said, what is the worth of the project? Because we are interested in the project not smaller than 500,000 euros. And we said, well, these 20 buildings are much less than 500,000 euros. And it's pretty difficult for such a financing institution, because the amount of paperwork is the same than for a bigger project. So you, from the standpoint of such a fund, in that case you would need to do not 10 big projects, but 100 small projects. It's just not efficient from their standpoint.
And then from your side, you couldn't scale it up, or it's difficult to scale it up.
It's a little difficult to scale up, because there are also some intricate aspects of the real estate industry. For example, we need to contract such a service with a building owner, because it is also an owner of the infrastructure of the building. At the same time, the main beneficiary is a tenant, because the tenant actually is improving the comfort for employees, and the tenant is actually saving energy, because all energy costs are transferred by the building owner onto the tenant. So we are contracting the building owner to reduce costs for tenants.
Yes, and they're not getting anything out of it, the building owner, or limited.
They may, but the benefit is maybe limited in terms of financial value. It may be much higher in terms of, for example, of ESG parameters, but ESG parameters being mandatory only from 2021, when the new European Council and Parliament regulation came into force. It is pretty new. So actually, for the owners, being the real estate funds, they are right now in the first year of reporting of ESG parameters to the world, to investors. So it is going to be a factor from this year on, but in the past it was of relatively minor importance.
But you don't have a. I just feel like what you're saying is you don't expect things to change in the future on this role of a virtual power plant.
I would say that there are two separate aspects of that. One aspect is virtual power plants in the field of power generation, and it is growing because you need to manage more efficiently these decentralized energy sources, like this growing industry of photovoltaics or wind farms and energy storage. It is going to be connected to these virtual power plants. And the second aspect is the how real estate is changing at the moment. And real estate is changing particularly from the standpoint of these climate reporting obligations. So they are actually in the process right now of internalizing the need to improve energy efficiency, to report the energy efficiency projects reducing their carbon footprint. So they're in the process right now. It is definitely a step in the process to make the virtual power plants also more predominant in the real estate industry.
And but those are for new buildings, and essentially what you were dealing with were older buildings, I'm guessing, or semi-new.
Yes and no. I mean,
Uh,
the typical building for which virtual power plant connected our services was like modern office buildings built 5, 10, 15 years ago, because they have installed all of these modern BMS systems. The more advanced BMS system, the better we can adjust it to respond to our signals. Older buildings, like 20 or 30 years old, just don't have these steering capabilities. So first, you need to modernize it, to implement these management capabilities in the second phase.
Would it be useful, for example, to pair your company with like a what do we call this, an energy efficiency building, or what, ESCO, is it? Where they come in and they do the retrofitting in a building, and then is that kind of how things should progress in the future? So it's the entire building's modernized physically and even virtually, and this is how we can achieve greater savings in the building sector.
Definitely, such an ESCO company is a good partner for these sort of services in the real estate industry. Yes, we were also working. We are still working until the end of this year with one of the large Polish energy companies, the state-owned companies, and we were or our service was sold in addition to the energy they were selling to their corporate clients. But it was not a very it proved not to be a very efficient solution, because actually the sales organization of such a state-owned entity was configured to be rewarded for the volume of electricity they were selling. So if they were at the same time selling the energy efficiency solution, it might be a counterproductive from the standpoint of the specific salesperson that was offering this solution. So from the standpoint of the company, it made a lot of sense, because they were expanding their energy services portfolio.
Yes.
But from the standpoint of a specific salesperson, to reduce the volume of energy he's selling was not a optimal strategy.
See, this is why I wanted to talk to you. Is this right? Because it's not just build these big projects, but it's these nuances within the
Absolutely.
energy
I
system.
agree.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I mean, even in that case, like a regulation by the energy regulator that this companies or these state-owned companies have to reduce energy use. In this case, the salesman or saleswoman, it would be overlooked in their role in this, and they wouldn't be promoting this.
Absolutely. And then these parameters or these KPIs need to cascade down to the level of a specific salesman. Otherwise, it just won't work.
Yeah, yeah, it's the limitations within the system
Yeah,
itself, and the person even goes to personal motivations.
absolutely.
So the CEO can say, "Hey, yeah, we're going to do this, and we're integrating all this energy efficiency and smart energy technology. We'll keep it broad." But at the ground level, when it's sold to a building owner, they're not pushed or they're not maybe educated enough on the possibilities.
And it's actually a pretty common story because I was talking to one of the other virtual power plant companies in Poland, focused on the power generation, distributed power generation. And one of the big Polish energy companies invested in the actually an investment arm of such a company invested in them. And they were expecting that in um, such an environment, they will benefit from a capital link with a large energy company, and it proved not to materialize.
Really?
Yeah, because this specific investment arm considered this investment as a sort of passive investment,
Yes.
and the company was left on its own to seek clients.
Okay.
At
Okay.
the same time, the conservative energy generation um, business of this company was not really interested to work with the startup.
Wow. Or do they just wanted to put the money in to say that they were putting the money in to assist them and to for the even for the ESGs, right? To make it look like they're doing something. But it
Yes,
was a passive investment, not an
yeah,
active investment where they would try to help roll it out.
yeah. And what I'm trying to say is that even if there is a real interest of the board in investing in such companies or investing in on extending the new energy portfolio, if it does not cascade to the middle level management, it's just a no go.
Yes, yes. That's great. And then maybe we move a little bit to the Sotel systems.
Oh yeah,
And I'm saving the liquid Polish Liquid Gas Associations, but the Sotel system seems to be also part of this story and focus of kind of in between systems. And maybe you could explain what does it do and the benefits. It's really interesting.
yeah. I mean, Soltel System is an Israeli company developing a management platform for decentralized photovoltaics. So a typical client for Soltel is a company operating multiple small installations, like 50 kilowatts uh, next to a household or on the roof or next to a small industry plant. But if there is a single operator of these decentralized installations, like a municipality or an installer providing also a maintenance services, uh, such an entity needs a platform to manage one access point to manage all of the installations from one single site. And these photovoltaics are based on various vendors of inverters, various panels, various systems. Soltel system can integrate with multiple vendors and provide you a single screen to report, to monitor, to diagnose, and to send a maintenance team if required.
You can see it.
You
Like
can see,
the power output.
you
for
can you
example.
can you can see the expected reasons
Uh-huh.
why the specific installation fails in performance, and you can see that there is for example, the need to send somebody to clean the panels, because it is one of the functions of the system to diagnose the reason why the specific installations is not delivering.
So not just highlighting, oh well, this is the power output past 2 weeks or something, but it actually tells you you got to clean your panels.
Well, it's actually responding within one day that something is just not right, or the specific panel is not working. So it's diagnostics, it's reporting, and it is a single point of management. Yes.
Okay. And in Poland, this is a global company. It's
It's
used
a
to.
it's an Israeli company. It's a startup. They are operating at the moment a lot of installations in Israel and in California. Right now, they are coming to Europe. They are talking to some clients in Spain with their pretty extensive PV industry.
Yeah.
They are also talking to clients in the DACH market, in Germany and Austria, and we are talking in some candidates in Poland at the moment.
Okay.
But the key point is that solar systems reduce by like 90% costs of maintenance of photovoltaics. So it's not helping with sales, it's not helping with installations, but it is helping with day-to-day operations once the PV is installed.
Wow. So it can really have I mean, it pays for itself.
It pays of itself.
I'm going to be a promoter of the company, but it does, right? Because it
It is,
catches
definitely.
like major problems earlier on. This whole automation and monitoring of equipment catches what could be a bigger problem later on early, and then it can be solved.
Yeah. Actually, if you look at the life cycle of photovoltaics, the output of PV is falling over the period of time when the PVs are losing their performance, and depending on how they are maintained, the differences are quite huge actually. So if there is a proper maintenance, you can lose like 5 to 7% of the performance over the lifetime. If the maintenance is well suboptimal, you can lose about like
Okay, so the Sotel Systems, it's a startup as well.
It is a startup.
And
yes.
what is your experience working in these different types of startups? How is working with Sotel Systems as a startup different from the virtual power plant? Is it more getting more reception because it's on the PV market rather than energy efficiency market, or even how in terms of raising funds to expand their business, is it easier for them?
I would say what is important actually, there are some similarities and there are some differences. The similarity, for example, is that in both cases, when you are coming to the market with a completely new service, you need to fight your way between the existing players on the market, or you need to pair or team up with an existing player to provide him with additional value to improve his margin. So it is just the same story concerning the market approach. When you are coming to the market with a new project, whatever the technology is, you need to provide a very convincing narrative how to improve the business performance of existing market players.
Okay.
So that's a top line, and no startup with whatever great technology is not going to survive on the market without that aspect. So that is an important part.
So they have to engage with established companies.
Probably, or really prove how they can replace existing player on the market, what is very very difficult basically. So generally you can go easier way to team up, or you need to have a very convincing financial proposition to the market.
Okay. And just your experience, because you mentioned they're active in Israel, California, Spain. This is quite international.
Yeah.
And even with the VPP here, weren't you active in Germany as well?
VPP, indeed, we were reaching out to international players. One important aspect, I would say, concerning VPP was that we really had to be present physically on the site to install our equipment, to install and configure. So that, to some extent, it limited the physical outreach. So it is, for example, difficult to implement the solution on the Californian 1 or 2 sites. You need to invest in the new market, basically, to start deploying.
Okay.
So that was one aspect. The other aspect, what is also quite important for VPP, is that when you are reaching out to an existing market player or an existing client, like an investment fund operating on the real estate business or on the PV business, you need to do a pilot project first to prove that you are delivering, and then you need to roll out on the broader portfolio. So, because it just doesn't make sense to target single projects across the portfolio, because you need always to start from pilot projects.
Okay.
So you need to roll out on a broader portfolio managed by a single player. It's much more cost efficient. And concerning, for example, real estate, most real estate facilities in Poland are owned by international players like German funds or Australian funds, or in some cases Czech funds. So you need to talk directly to the people in headquarters, because in headquarters they are likely to deal with some local company and actually block you from entering their portfolio. So it's quite difficult, because for example, Germans are operating in a different mindset than the Polish. And if you have a large company operating like 10 or 20 buildings in Poland by 200 buildings in Germany, you need to convince the headquarters and not only the local people.
Right, and the local people might block it for whatever reason then.
Yeah. In that sense, Soltel might be easier to deploy, because you don't need to be physically present at the site, and the configuration is entirely virtual. We need only user credentials to log into the existing interface to connect it to the Soltel platform.
So maybe this is why, I'm just guessing, like startups we see as in the tech world because of this, because doing a software startup is maybe easier than doing one with hardware.
That's absolutely true. On the other side, there is a higher barrier to access this software plus hardware market. So if you are a successful hardware plus software startup, you are pretty secure to reach up your goals, and you are pretty safe against the newcomers, because it's much easier to develop only software. It's much more difficult to develop hardware on the scalable solution.
I mean, and if you deployed your hardware, then the building owner, whoever, has also invested in your company in a sense because they have the hardware there. It's also the software operating, so the cost to switch could or to quickly change to a new system would actually be higher for them.
Might be that might be
It's kind of
the
theory,
case.
but
Yes, that might be the
okay.
case. Yeah.
Okay, maybe now we get to the Polish Liquid Gas
Yeah.
Association, and I'm really excited about this because
Good to
as
hear that. Yeah.
I know, but anything you're involved in, I'm excited about. So because then I know it's really interesting and good. So, and this LPG, and I've just learned in a brief conversation before our discussion started, Poland is really high up on LPG. But maybe you can explain what is the Polish Liquid Gas Association, and what does it do, and then we'll get to how LPG is used in Poland.
Yes, yes, yes. Basically, what is LPG? Is a liquid petroleum gas. So it is the mixture of propane and butane, basically. So hydrocarbons that are a byproduct from refinery production and gas exploration. So it is already there because it is being produced as a byproduct. So it is just a case of using it in a viable way in the economy. And what we are as a Polish Liquid Gas Association, we are an association of companies which are involved in the wholesale liquid gas business. So we are basically importing and distributing the liquid gas in applications popular in Poland, and also companies producing for the specific market. So among our clients are both international companies like SHV and UGI, and also companies producing cylinders and tanks for the liquid gas market.
Mm.
And what we are doing, we are currently involved in raising the flag of the industry in Poland for the purpose of the Polish energy policy, also within the framework of the European climate policy and the Green Deal. What is important, because we know every one of us knows that fossil fuels are a dead end in the long term.
Yeah,
So
so you're going to be out of a job in 5 years, no?
so that's the point actually. What we are saying that in 2021, and it's very important. It's very serious business here. Our members complied to shift 100% of production from fossil fuels to organic renewable feedstock. So basically we are going rural. Actually, we are going to produce LPG in the fermentation
From
or
farms.
gasification process, either from farms or from organic residues, organic waste from municipalities.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very long shot from the standpoint of the industry. It's very carefully planned. Some companies across Europe are already transforming the existing refineries into biorefineries. So we are starting to produce bio LPG. It is already happening. Repsol in Spain and Italians are transforming their refineries. Neste in Scandinavia is producing bio LPG. But what is particularly interesting from our standpoint, in Poland there is a very promising company producing with patented technology, producing various actually biofuels, including biopetrol and bio LPG from waste residues. And actually, our clients are committed to scaling this technology up. Actually, they are considering investment in such a company, and exploring their scalability to implement this technology in new facilities across Europe.
So let's get this straight then. So the LPG, which relies on these feedstocks from gas, and it's the waste product from processing it. Uh, they have actually committed to move away from the fossil fuel and only use biogas produced from what would we say, natural feedstocks, or
Yes,
this waste,
yes,
which can be both municipal waste, uh, toilet water, we could say politely, or
mixed waste. Yes,
mixed waste, okay, right? Or it can come from a farm, for example. Is this like methane from cows, or it's just the sludge even?
it's a similar process
Mm-hmm.
actually, because propane butane is a similar hydrocarbon than as methane. It's
Mm-hmm.
a quite similar process. Yes.
Okay. So well, this is quite, and um so by shifting it, and Poland, it's a big country, and it has the capacity to the industry has the capacity, or how do I explain it? There's capacity, a natural capacity to replace the fossil fuel based LPG with this bio based LPG.
There is of course there is always a question of regulations, how to promote such a biofuel, because at the moment it is all, of course, a little bit more expensive than a fossil fuel,
Mm,
that a fossil origin
yes.
LPG. But let me comment quickly on the market, because you also pointed out at that. Indeed, Poland is among the most prominent European users of liquid gas, LPG specifically, and in Poland, probably also across Europe, only the percentages will vary. You have LPG in, say, three major applications. One major application is a LPG as a transport fuel. Cars, cars with the propane tanks.
Which is what, 3 million in Poland. It's
It
really
is
high.
about approximately 3
Uh-huh.
million cars in
Wow, it's
Poland,
huge.
indeed.
Uh-huh.
And it is like 2/3 of the Polish market at the moment. It's pretty, I would say it's pretty stable. We don't expect to expand very much, because we have the plan for electrification of the passenger fleets across Europe.
Oh,
So LPG will remain for a while. We will probably replace LPG with bio LPG as a drop-in fuel. But it is a market with, I would say, limited expansion potential. The second segment of the market is LPG in cylinders, and it is used for example, in tourist application, also for campers. Last year was great for campers, actually.
oh yeah, for camping.
For camping,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
because people were restricted to travel across Europe. So many campers actually were using
Uh-huh.
LPG locally.
Yes.
But it is also pretty stable market. The third segment, which is especially promising for us, is a production of or application of LPG as a heating fuel for particularly for not connected rural areas, so
Mm-hmm.
for off-grid installations, both for households and also for rural business, for rural industry. And it is really growing very much at the moment. Both if you take into account the air quality shift from traditional coal-fired
Yeah.
boilers to gas boilers, whether it is LNG or LPG. It's a huge environmental difference, and also it is a case for small business, in the food industry, for example, for example, large consumers of LPG are chicken farms, which is a huge business in Poland. And these are companies that are off grid. They are established a long way from the gas grid, and they are and when they are switching from production of heat from coal to gas, an important important environmental step in the decarbonization in Poland. So our point is that if you convert these old heat sources with the heat sources based on LPG, and in the longer term with bio LPG, because you can shift to bio LPG without any investment as a consumer, of course, then you are delivering a tangible benefit from the standpoint of economy decarbonization. We see it as also we see it as I would say, as a third major pillar alongside of electrification, which is going to happen.
Yes.
And energy efficiency.
So yeah, in the rural areas, then this LPG really can make a difference, especially if you're switching from coal.
Yes.
Then it's outrageous, and even wood, so they don't have to use wood for heating homes as well.
Yes, definitely. The more so that actually wood and biomass, it is sort of a gray zone in terms of regulation. So very frequently you really don't know what is being burned.
Yes, and in Poland, do the we'll just say the poorer people in the rural areas, do they burn coal or do they burn wood, or is it a mix?
Well, it is typically it's a coal. But it's coal, but in many cases they are still burning waste. So there are some people which are still burning furniture. They are burning old tires. So it's pretty terrible from the standpoint of air quality, particularly in the smaller towns where there is a limited access to the gas grid.
Mm-hmm. Are there some regulations, or at least some talk about some regulations, to require households in certain villages, for example, to maybe use LPG or to use electric heat?
We are currently there are currently actually there is a regulation concerning the technical requirements of the heat source in households. So you cannot install at the moment. You cannot install the new heat source that is below a certain level of energy efficiency and I would say emission from the process. But there is also a very broad program implemented by the government to replace the legacy polluting heat sources with the new one. Okay. So it is really the option to move from the old like coal boiler to a new gas-fired boiler, with an advanced one, with a very small investment on the side of a household, because it is supported by the government fund.
Okay, and how much does a boil? I mean, I don't know. This is maybe hard to say, but how much would a boiler cost? An LPG, a gas or LPG fired boiler for a typical Polish household? I mean, or how much would they have to pay maybe out of pocket for this?
That I would need to check for you.
Okay, I know it's a hard thing to get the numbers. Okay, so that's fine. So there's this push, and also as we discussed, then there's on the part of your association, recognizing and integrating more the role of LNG.
Indeed, yes.
And maybe you could expand on that. Why? I mean, there's obvious reasons, but why is LNG becoming more prominent in Poland?
Well, I would say that that LNG and LPG are actually pretty complementary fuels. So you can use LNG and LPG with various applications. LNG is typically very well suited for bigger industry, which is already using, for example, large amounts of gas. You can build even regasification station, and in the future you can connect the gas grid to such a regasification station. So you already have your own infrastructure,
Mm-hmm.
but you can connect the pipe later on.
Okay.
In the meantime, you are getting LNG through the cistern or a tank. So that's one of the application. LNG is also a pretty good solution for heavy duty vehicles and municipal transport. And we are moving towards this zero or low emission transport in the cities, and already many municipalities are using these LNG powered buses. So LNG is also here a perfect solution. And LNG is frequently used for ship bunkering, for fueling ships actually.
Okay. Yes. Uh-huh.
So these are major applications of LNG. LNG has one major downside, which reduces its applicability for smaller users. It needs cryogenic technology.
Yes.
Because you cannot transport LNG at ambient temperature. It's just impossible. So basically the key is apply LPG for smaller users, because LPG does not need any cryogenic capabilities, and LNG for bigger users.
Okay. That makes sense. And how does hydrogen enter here? Because there's a lot of talk now of hydrogen.
Yes, hydrogen is a very, I'd say, very popular source of energy at the moment. There is a lot of actually just a month ago there was a sectoral agreement for development of hydrogen in Poland, signed by multiple parties, government and not government parties. So hydrogen is certainly on the rise. There are some projects to prove the viability of producing green hydrogen also.
Mm-hmm.
Well, our members are also interested to participate in development of hydrogen applications in Poland, because you can also transport hydrogen in the tanks. So it could also be a liquid gas actually.
Yes.
From my personal standpoint, it is a little bit far at the moment from industrial or commercial application. It's more a proof of concept from my personal standpoint.
Yes,
I'm not
yes.
representing the view of the organization at the moment, because we don't have a view right now.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something to explore. It's definitely something to participate in development. I don't see personally a major application of hydrogen within the next decade or so. We are talking a lot about the hydrogen cells. The hydrogen cells require a very pure hydrogen. It's a very, I would say, sophisticated process to produce such a pure hydrogen. I can tell that there are some I would say, companies in Poland which are trying to develop the capabilities to produce hydrogen. But at the moment, I think that apart from refineries, which are obviously producing hydrogen for their technical processing, there are maybe 5 players involved and capable of handling hydrogen in major qualities in Poland.
Okay. So it's not a big topic yet.
It is well. It is a big
Uh-huh.
topic. I'm just saying
Okay.
it is more about development than practical
Okay.
application.
It's shale gas, 2012, 2013.
Well, I didn't say that.
I did. Let's say that. That's what I say. So, but let's hope it does take off
Yeah,
somehow,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
hey, build a nuclear power, and you know what pink hydrogen is?
Yeah, yes, I heard about the many colors of hydrogen
Yes,
and the
many.
pink hydrogen from the nuclear plant.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So, okay.
Well, I can
Mm,
tell you that once I spoke with one of the refineries people, and they said that they were interested in building a electrolyzer run on renewable energy sources in the vicinity of the refinery. But it turned out that using all the capabilities in the region, they could produce about 5% of the hydrogen they need for the refinery process.
wow.
So it is well, actually using the natural gas they are producing much more they can do from the renewable energy sources. But at the same time, I think that generation and storage of hydrogen is a very good solution. If you have a major surplus of renewable energy sources, you cannot push into the grid, given technical constraints. It is possible to build an electrolyzer, convert it into hydrogen, and store it locally. It is a viable solution, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Good. Okay. Well, we'll save that for the next visit.
Yeah.
So, if we have to wait another 2 years, then we'll get there. Okay. Well, Bartos, I just want to bring this around, and we've talked on lots of different topics. It's fantastic, and maybe just to end our discussion, I would really like to know, and you can take your time in answering it. So, but what will Poland's energy system look like in 2035, 2050? And it goes back actually what we talked about at the very beginning, phase out of coal, phase out lignite at least. And what are the changes that are maybe most dramatic in Poland over the next few years and longer term?
All right. So, well, if you ask an expert on the more most likely direction, such an expert would say, I don't know. But we can play a futurologist, I would say, because you know Futurologist Congress by Stanisław Lem is a very popular book. I can play the futurologist.
Yes, please, please.
So as a futurologist, I can imagine that by 2035, we won't have any lignite in our power system. We will have major footprint of offshore wind farms already, because multiple projects are ongoing, and we would have photovoltaics in a little bit different in a little bit different context than today, because today most of the projects are small rooftop or household application, but large PV farms are being built at the moment. So by 2035, these large PV farms will be prevalent, and it will complement coal still in the system, but retained in the much smaller quantity. Probably by 2035, we still won't have a nuclear power plant. I sincerely doubt that it is possible by 2035. But to compensate the growing amount of renewable energy sources, the energy storage will be required to balance the generation, and particularly from the standpoint of industrial installation, you won't get a permission to connect to the grid without an energy storage on site.
Wow.
So I would say that's the direction. We will have more energy clusters, more self-managing and self-sufficient in terms of energy, and they will also have energy storage. These will be specifically based in the rural areas, more distant from the cities. So that's my idea for 2035. For 2050, I expect that we will have nuclear power plant and no coal capacity any longer, because that will be phased out long before 2050.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my idea.
Okay.
And of course, virtual power plants. They will be
Yes.
they will be there, particularly to manage these distribution energy sources. Yes.
Yes. And you'll be the CEO of the largest virtual power plant company in Poland.
I don't know, because just recently I read that being a CEO or a managing director provides a major risk for your health.
Okay.
Reduces your lifespan, actually.
I believe it. Right? Let's just keep doing what we do so we can live longer. Yeah.
Yep.
I love it. Okay, Bartosz, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure, like always.
Always a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for this episode. We produce the My Energy 2050 podcast to learn about cutting-edge research and the people building our clean energy system. If you enjoyed this episode or any episode, please share it. The more we spread our message of the ease of an energy transition, the faster we can make it. You can follow us on LinkedIn, where we are the most active on the My Energy 2050 webpage, or on Twitter and Facebook. I'm your host, Michael LaBelle. Thank you for listening to this week's episode.